This is Common Courtesy, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. A talk show for working LGBTQ plus individuals and allies who are active in their own communities and who also wish to stay woke about what's happening in today's world.
I had a crush on my best friend in school. I flirted with him. Like,
Allegedly. From the stories that I heard.
The weak ass joke. And I don't care hold on.
So, let's start the conversation.
This is an opinion-based show, not a news outlet. The views and opinions of the guests on Common Courtesy TV solely reflect their opinion and or experience and not of Common Courtesy TV or any of its affiliates or hosts.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Common Courtesy TV, a Bay Area podcast and talk show for the working LGBTQ plus individual and our allies who are already active in our own communities and they want to stay woke about things happening in our own society, pop culture, and things happening in our modern day world, and they want to hear it from an LGBTQ plus perspective. I am your host and moderator, Bay Area actor and sobriety advocate. I am Shawn Nikolas. This week I am joined by my awesome co-host. I have entrepreneur, original co-host, and ally. We have Nikki Prue.
How are you?
I'm good, Nikki. How are you?
I am fabulous. Happy to be here.
So let's get into this week's topic. So there's some controversial conversations going on about education, and the Florida Board of Education's new Black History curriculum is just one of them. Let's take a little look at some news clippings and see what's going on.
The new guidelines require middle school students be taught, quote, how slaves developed skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. In high school, the guidelines require the teaching of both acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans.
So there's a lot of controversy surrounding some of the benchmark clarification points, especially the one about how slavery taught people useful skills that benefit them in their personal life. I just kind of want to get a little reaction from this and to see if there's some type of a point or, is this how we should be teaching Black history?
Okay, so two things off the bat. First and foremost, since you had just spoken about it, telling us as a society today that slaves got training like as if they were going to some kind of low budget trade school, and they acquired skills that would be to their benefit. My question about that statement at all is, why are you even saying it? Like, that should be so far from anything that we are talking about. Like, because I guess the question is, really, why are you saying it? Are you saying it so that we're like, oh my, well, they know.
Like an epiphany or something like that? Like, oh, this is a side that we never thought about seeing.
I can't believe we've been so blind because they acquired skills. I mean, here I was thinking that they were just being abused and whipped day after day to do a skill that they weren't even good at. But now I know, thankfully, that they were good at the skills that they were forced into doing. It would be like saying to me, who does not like, I can sew a hem if there's like a proverbial gun to my head and I have to, but I don't like it. Sewing is not my thing. So it would be like saying to me, hey, Nikki, you're now a seamstress. Get in there and sew clothes for my family. And when you don't do it fast enough, you're going to get lashings and you're not going to be able to eat. And then a god awful amount of years later, I am still alive when the bill is passed and I'm freed and I'm not a slave anymore. But I have all these seamstress skills to take me out into the world, into society. I probably never want to touch a needle and thread again, but it's my skill now because I was forced into it. Like, that is the most bullshit pile of garbage I have ever heard. I don't want to hear about any skills that they were forced into and having it be made into a positive thing. There's stop. That's what it is. Our society is now trying to put a spin move on a positive spin on slavery. What is happening? Like, that is no. Guess what? Some things in history you cannot sugarcoat. This is one of them. It's one of the biggest ones. You can't put a positive spin on this at all. There's no positive spin. The only positive would be that, like, when they were freed, because when they were freed, they were just left to defend, like, to their own devices. Fend for yourself. You have nothing, no money, no land, no name. So just go out in the world. But you're free now. So, like, thankfully, yes, some of them did have these skills, but it wasn't easy for them. Nothing made it easy for them. If anything, they just had a skill that they couldn't even put to use because nobody would hire them because they were former slaves. All right. My other thing, I mean, that was like the biggest, it's just so outrageous to me. My brain can't even wrap itself around the idea. But the whole point of this thing, you know, basically censoring history for kids or putting a positive spin on terrible history for kids is not something that we should ever be doing. Ever. The point of history is to learn what happened, how our country, how our world was shaped, how it was crumbled in some aspects.
How we evolved from it, really.
Absolutely. How we evolved from it, yes.
Yeah.
What we've hopefully learned
from it. And, you know, the one thing that
you
I
can't
kind of
learn
wanted
from a lie.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that, you know, a lot of what Kamala Harris said in her speech Friday kind of like resonated with a lot of people. But I think this is funny coming from the party that was up in arms about tearing down Civil War hero statues back in 2020. They were like, you can't destroy history, but now it seems like they don't want to tell it or you are not look as bad
Shawn, that is,
in history.
That is
I think
such
there's
a
no
good point.
Yeah, right. I think there's no way of looking good from any of the atrocities that happened back in slavery because it wasn't just lashings. People got their feet and hands and feet cut off, you know, tongues cut out because of punishment.
Yeah.
And even still today, we still see the scars of slavery. If we look at, you know, the service industry, you know, because people think that one of your jobs is to get everything they need, you know, and sometimes people are very apathetic or they look at you if you're a person of color, or I'm just something I've seen, or anybody if you're a low class citizen that you deserve.
I've seen it with coworkers.
Yeah, but
and
even
it's
if you're low,
it's disgraceful.
it is, and I think that another important, I think it's kind of wrong to treat anybody like they're not a human. You know, the dehumanization during slavery was just too much. 100%. But then to go in to say that, you know, we can't forget about the other sides during Reconstruction. What other side that, you know, if we remember in Florida, something that happened in Florida called the Rosewood Massacre. There was a city called Rosewood where the Black community was basically destroyed on a lie that was told in the community, something along the lines of, like, you know, someone was raped and, you know, a white mob destroyed the whole town. That happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So now we don't want to talk about, basically, we have to talk about the acts of violence. So basically they're talking about the other side, like, oh, these people, this mob came and destroyed and killed all the innocent people in this town because somebody from that community did something. But that's crazy because the law that is kind of circumventing the teaching of Black history, where it doesn't really matter about how you teach it, it's just history. It doesn't matter if you feel, but you should feel something. You know, if you're a human being, you should feel something. Everyone's going to feel anything about hearing about what people did in the past and what they thought was okay. You know, but I think that it's kind of crazy to say, you know, these atrocities that happened during Reconstructions, we got to look at both sides. Do they do that now, or did they do that during the civil rights movement? It's kind of hard to look at the other side
Look at
during
both sides, you
slavery.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like look at both sides.
It's impossible
It's
to look at
impossible,
other
and I
sides
think,
during when you
I,
think about slavery. There's no
well,
there
not just
there's a line, and you're on one side or the other. There's
right,
no
and
gray area to it.
there's no
It's
great.
wrong.
It was wrong to do it, and I think that it's funny that this also comes from the party that believes in the Bible, and a lot of the bad guys in the Bible were enslaving people. So I kind of think it dictates how people want to look at themselves. I think that we have to take accountability, and that's what's wrong with America. That sometimes we don't want to take accountability for things that we didn't do, but we as a nation allowed it to happen. So when people came about reparations, it wasn't
Well, the
about
problem,
wait, hold on. When they came about reparations, it wasn't about what Nikki's ancestors did or what my ancestors did or anybody's ancestors did. It was that the country knew it was going on and they allowed it for it to happen, and there was no real type of
that's it.
accountability taken for it. And monetary accountability would help a lot of the things that happened afterward slavery. Because we made laws about it, so we can't just say this shit is bullshit.
Everything you just said echoed like the additional comments I wanted to make. The reason that this is happening is because our country has become very fragile as a people, and we cannot bear even thinking that somebody is accusing us of doing anything, and we cannot bear apologizing or truly just not even apologizing, but accepting that like wrong was done. No, not personally by me or like my mom or her mom or but it was done. And as society, that's something that we need to do nothing at all but accept, understand, and do better. Like this rewriting history and trying to sugarcoat it and making kids feel better because we don't. No, it happened, and we should know about it, because the only way to learn from your mistakes is to learn from your mistakes
And talk about
and
it.
that's awesome.
I think it kind of really signals.
And talk about it and spread awareness and knowledge.
And I think that the Florida thing is we always try to make people feel like sugarcoating. Listen, bad shit happened and people did it. It wasn't you, but that's what they did back in the past. I think we should take accountability for it. But we ran out of time for this topic. We'll go and come right back.
Hey everybody, it's Dave with Tampa Bay Gay. Just want to take a minute to thank you very much for watching, sharing, and liking our videos. With that being said, check out this week's LGBTQ+ events. On the 27th at the Metro and Central, want something new? Thursdays are for tea, so let's build on sex, health, and relationships. Join us and come take a sip. Also, if you didn't know, Metro offers free HIV and STI testing. Additionally, they are offering Mpox vaccines at many of their locations. This Sunday, the 30th, come support the Tampa International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival as they present Daphne Ferraro's The Evolution of Drag Through the Decades. VIP is sold out, but general admission tickets are still available. It all goes down to the Palladium in St. Pete. Doors open at 4. Jobsite Theater presents Lizzie, a killer rock musical playing at the Schimberg Playhouse now through August 6th. The show has been selling out and getting great reviews. Lizzie is America's favorite double-axe murderer. Busch Gardens Beer Fest is happening weekends now through September 4th. Come sample the best beers and German-inspired bites. Don't forget about their Beer Fest sampler cards. And just announced, it's Busch Gardens Sinister Sale happening now through July 30th. Get up to 70% off single night tickets to this year's Hollow Scream Tampa Bay. The event runs select nights through October 31st. As always, have a great week and don't forget to visit tampabaygay.com for the latest local events, digital content, and more. Also, please like, share, and subscribe.
So here we go. Rumors are circulating that singer and actress Ariana Grande is likely to divorce her husband Dalton Gomez, whom she married in 2021, and is now in a new romance with actor Ethan Slater, who is her co-star in the upcoming film Wicked. So sources say that, wicked indeed. Oh, what a wicked web. So sources say that Ariana's been separated from her husband since January, and things haven't been going pretty well. So I kind of want to ask, because this kind of pops up a question of mine that I've always wanted to know, and people ask me, how long should we wait after a relationship to start dating again? So, Nikki, let me ask you, how long do you think is a good time to wait after a relationship to start dating again?
I mean, honestly, I
What do
don't
you
really think.
think?
I think. Are you asking for a specific reason? I don't think there is a right time. I think it, it's whenever you feel right, and there's in some cases, if depending on how the breakup goes, depending on how amicable, somebody might say, I'm not going to date anyone else for a month or 2 months to be respectful to somebody else. Or they'll say, like, no social media announcements or
Right.
whatever for X amount of time. But at the end of the day, if you break up with someone, that relationship is over. You don't have to be mean to them. You don't have to throw it in their face, but you don't owe them anything anymore. And what is waiting a certain amount of time going to do? Give that person false hope that maybe you might be coming back, or is it gonna? It's not gonna do anything. So I mean, I think when I was younger, I would have said, like, well, you need to wait at least until you're over. No, it's when you're over that person, you'll want to date again. And I don't think you should miss out necessarily on like a new. I mean, not that you should jump. That's a whole other can of worms. Ideally, if you're me, like, I didn't wait a long time between breakups until my last one before Shawn. And it was in my best interest to take some time, chill out, regroup, find me again. But that all depends on the person. I don't, you don't owe anything to anyone when you break up with them. You just don't. And I think there's a lot of people who would say, like, well, people who were jilted and sad at being broken up with tend to get, like, well, you should have waited. It was only a week and he was on a date with an. What are you supposed to do? You're not in mourning. You just broke up with somebody. And if you broke up, it was for a reason. So just whatever you want to do. I don't think there's any amount of time that's specific. I think it's up to how you feel.
I was tossing this question around earlier in my head, and I kind of came up with the same thing that you said. It really depends on the person. Like some people have really big emotional feelings, and if they've been in it also depends on how long the relationship was. Like, this marriage kind of was like maybe not even a year, and maybe the relationship before that wasn't that long either. I would say maybe a year before that. It wasn't, and it wasn't that pretty much. It wasn't 10 years. You know what I mean? Sound like a 2 to 3 year type of a thing. So it also depends on how long the relationship is. But I do understand that some people do have like big hearts and they fall really hard for people. It depends on how long they can process the breakup, because then you have to kind of like get some distance from that person. You know what I mean? When they say hindsight is 2020, that's when you start seeing, some of the clues that this is not working out. You know what I mean? Like, it's maybe perhaps things they say, things they do. There's little like hints that people give you.
But
I
you can't
honestly think
see
that
if you're still talking and like broken up, but being like, we're going to be amicable and see each other every day, even though we don't have to. Are you okay? Are you okay with the breakup? Are you okay with the fact that we're not together anymore? Let me
yeah,
hug you, even though we're not together. That will make it better. No, it makes you want to die. Break it off. Break
break
it
it off.
off.
I think that with this, I mean, even in the story, Ariana got a little Ariana got a little distance from her husband, who they weren't working out for months before that. I think if you can do an amicable breakup, that's fine. That doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with them, because then you're not allowing yourself to see your life without that person always being around. I think for me, after a breakup, I think it takes about especially if it's a really serious relationship, takes about 60 days to like 3 months to really see myself, to really want to date. Now, that's different. Dating is different from, having some fun a little bit, because I
By
do agree with
looking
that.
for a
I,
relationship is what you're talking about. Like, what when you're
right.
ready to like look for like something serious. And I think that's fair. I think I'm kind of on the exact same page. Like in the
Yeah,
past
I
when
mean, I
I've
think you can sleep with someone if you want, but I also do mean like dating someone, even if you're like not seriously dating, but like you're just agreeing to like see each other, you know what I mean?
putting
And
it,
then you're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
public. I think that, it takes a couple of months for me to do that. But like I said, I agree with you. It depends on how people process things. I think that, the fact that people ask this question, it all depends. It goes back to communication. I think it's the number one killer in relationships is communicating, because some people don't feel comfortable telling people how they really feel, even if it's bad or negative. Kind of like how the Florida Department of Education is doing with Black History. It is something that we are taught in America, and I think that we should kind of look at that. We're taught to not look at the real things, even if especially if it's negative. We don't want to focus on it or address it like the elephant in the room. But it's fine, because once you get that communication, going, you get either fix relationship or not. But I think that it depends on the person. I don't think that she waited too long or too little. I mean, she hasn't been with her husband for 6 months. I think that's enough time to start dating again. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But like I said, I agree with you. It depends on the person. But you have anything else to say? Because we ran out of time for this topic.
No, you pretty much covered it with your last comments, and once again, I agree with you there too.
Yeah, I have to say, it just depends. I think that more conversations about relationships and the myriad intricacies, we should be okay with having conversations about, because that's something I think that they should talk about in school, is how to handle interpersonal relationships. Because sometimes you'll meet someone and they're just there for a day or two and just to have a little bit of fun with you, and so should you be. But some people are there for a much longer period of time. I think if we get better at identifying between the two of those, I think our society will be much better daters.
Well, if people
But
felt more comfortable saying it, yeah, just like everybody's still very afraid to say like, I only want to hang out with you for a short period of time, or like even the other way. I think if we were all just honest right off the bat and not scared of like either, not even like hurting someone's feelings in a mean way, because that's a lot of the reason I think people don't say that. Like, I really like you, I like hanging out with you, but I don't want anything. All right. But like either way, just be honest, and we could all save so much time. The world would save so much time.
and so much TV time too, because Oprah and Maury would lose so many guests. Well, Maury's no longer on, but I watched Divorce Court and Paternity Court,
Always
and
be
I'm
a show
like,
like that.
right? I'm like, clearly this relationship wasn't working. I don't know why they decided to have a child with each other. And it gets even worse when you add children, because children don't really know anything. And if just like we're talking about education and why we should teach interpersonal relationships in school, because not everyone's life is the same. Not everyone has two parents
Hmm.
and things like that. You have one. There's different things that can happen in our life. We should teach reality. Like I said, we ran out of time. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and hanging out with us this nice 30 minutes. We will see you guys next week. I want to thank you guys for listening. I also want to thank our sponsor, Dave Foreman from Tampa Bay Gay, for being
Thanks,
with us. And
Dave.
I also want to thank my awesome co host, Nikki, for joining me on this awesome conversation. We will see you guys next week. And until then, always have a little bit more common courtesy. See y'all.
Bye, guys.